Now to discuss further on the issue, Dr. Soo-young, professor of finance at Chung Ang University, joins me in the studio. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for inviting me.
President Moon Jae-in today said that Korea has responded well to counter Japan's trade curbs. How do you assess the countermeasures made by the South Korean government, the companies, as well as the general public?
Okay, let me start with the company's response. Actually, as far as I remember correctly, in last year, December, the Samsung and the government cooperate with each other and to be prepared for the potential sanctions against Korean exports to Korea from Japan. Therefore, they choose among some more than 1,000 thousands products that could be affected by the Japanese sanction against us. Then I think and the other companies, Samsung and the big companies, they are trying to be prepared for some embargo in the future. So to that regard, the company's response was very good, and also the government has been prepared for potential possibility of the embargo. So that's why we respond and very quickly, and also could maintain the firm and the stable stance against the Japanese embargo, and without any some confusion or any embarrassment at all. So to that regard, I think that was very good.
So you also take a very positive view on Korea's response. Now, taking a look back at the last 100 days since Japan's curbs took into effect, it seems like they ended up backfiring as the impact on the Korean firms were limited, more limited than expected, while Japan's exports to Korea fell and its tourism industry was also hit hard.
Right.
How do you see this?
That is very interesting in light of the economic sense. Actually, the damage that could incur to Korea because the sanction against the semiconductor production, the three materials, are very important, and otherwise we are going to suffer so much. And also, still I'm a little bit concerned about that situation. This some stalemate has extended further more than years. Then clearly we are going to suffer and out of the damage. However, Japan has not suffered so much in terms of the economic value because the tourism economy has accounted for a small portion of total GDP of Japan. However, politically it could have a really significant and substantial impact because the accommodation, eating and the drinking and the tourism related actually take a huge part of employment. So in terms of the number of population who has participated in this kind of tertiary industry and the tourism industry has been very significant. It has a really substantial and significant impact on the people who are working there. Then they could raise their voice against the Japanese government, particularly Abe cabinet. Then that voices could be heard much louder than ever. So to that regard, I think even though economic value there is a bias, however, in terms of the political impact, that could be much more pronounced in Japan than in Korea.
So Japan's loss in terms of the amount, the value, economic value may be small, but its political impact could be big. Now, Korean firms fared well, as we've mentioned, better than expected, with some succeeding in finding alternative sources while also succeeding in domestically producing their own high-tech materials. And the Korean government has also fully supported these local firms to boost their competitiveness. Do you think Korea has succeeded in turning this crisis into an opportunity?
Yes, according to data about the economic net export, actually Korea is the largest import of Japanese products. So that export is much larger for Japan. But particularly in machine and some key materials for the semiconductor, according to the supply chain of the whole semiconductor supply in worldwide, then Japan has provided the key materials to Korea, then in return they received the final product from Korea also. So they are clearly linked together very much. But initially, Japan could affect the Korean industry, semiconductor industry, by sanctions, imposing sanctions against key materials. But however, then that could be a backfiring against Japan, because they have to import also final product out of Korea. So to that regard, Japan has been, they think in a relatively short period, they are going to win against, they could have an upper hand for the trade dispute between Korea and Japan. But as it turns out, that Korean domestic supplier also tried to develop and try to supply the key materials to semiconductor production companies such as Samsung and Hynix. Then also they have been, as I told you earlier, that they have been prepared to try to build up some kind of inventory of those materials, which could maintain the current level of production for the next several months. So that is why we have been relatively successful for the until now. But I don't think this could be long-lasting, because if it goes further, then the dispute extended further, clearly we have to find some other sources. So to that regard, government also spend so much money to promote the development of the materials supply and the machines and the components and the parts. Of course, in the several months ago, I heard some experts in engineering and this kind of semiconductor industry, they claimed that Korea must be defeated in the long run because key materials, they said to me that we cannot make up develop such a high quality level of the key material in a relatively short time. But however, even though the quality is a little bit lower than Japanese materials, but still they made progress in Korean supply industry. And then that is why we could maintain some upper hand against Japan for the next several months.
So although Korea is faring quite well right now, if this trade dispute goes on for a longer period of time, then we do have some remaining challenges.
Right.
Now, as we saw in our report, high-level officials from Seoul and Tokyo held their first bilateral consultation meeting. The meeting is actually taking place now as we speak at the WTO in Geneva. What do you think are the key points of today's meeting?
Actually, in the last month, Japan has maintained their status for this dispute. They just try to ignore it. And also, even the Korean government filed a dispute settlement in the WTO, then they try to make it have no effect, because this is not worthwhile to keep in the agenda as a dispute settlement issue. But however, then they realized that the situation does not go well for themselves. So that's why Japan has tried to consider the dispute settlement at the higher level. And also recently, because we have Korea and Japan has so many issues of dispute settlement that was filed in WTO. And recently in September, Japan has won against one case. But before that, Korea has won against some export from Fukushima and the radioactive issues. And those issues are settled in favor of Korea. Therefore, as a result, consequently, Japan has seriously considering, I think they take this issue a little bit more serious, and then they increase the level of the talk between at the director general level. then that is currently is taking place in Geneva today.
So do you expect some progress from today's talks?
Actually, not much, as long as Abe cabinet has maintained their control power over the Japanese government. Then because Japan has, the goal is to make the Korean government submissive. And, but however, they realize that the Korean government's firm stance is stronger than expected. As a result, therefore, that's why they try to take up this issue much more seriously. But I don't think they are going to change their attitude sooner or later. So we should, I think, what is important for Korean government and our companies is to maintain the current trend and keep the pressure on the Japanese government. Then Abe cabinet, they cannot but come to talk about this issue because politically they are going to suffer a little more from the local people, local economy in Japan particularly.
Now, the World Economic Forum has released this year's Global Competitiveness Report, and South Korea has ranked 13th out of 141 nations, moving up 2 notches from last year. It topped the list in ICT technology and macroeconomic stability. Implications to the Korean economy of this report?
Yeah, actually, the World Economic Forum, they have announced the Global Competitiveness Index 4.0, and we are ranked for 13th next to Taiwan. In East Asia, in Asia, actually, we are ranked 4th, so very high. But I would like to talk about these global competitiveness index is produced from the 12 different pillars. Out of that, each has equal weight, or 8.3 percentage point for the whole 100 point score. Then, as you mentioned, that we have the first ranked in ICT and innovation. So to that regard, we are one of the most advanced country in the world in light of the ICT-related arenas. But however, we are a little bit, the rank is lower for some other pillars. So that is the point we have to make some progress and improvement.
All right, I did have more questions lined up for you today, Dr. Song, but that is all the time we have for you. Thank you for your analysis tonight.
Yeah, thank you.